So, a while back, I made a video talking about how I was pro-abortion under the circumstances of overall health and well-being of the mother and child. Circumstances such as rape, drug abuse, mental illness, severe mental illness. Like one that makes you inadequate to function in society by yourself. Since then, with my child development studies and my experience with pro-lifers and liberals has changed my mind on where I stand on abortion. I do think it should be funded. I do think it should be legal. I don't think it should be funded by taxpayers. And I don't think at all. I feel passionately and I know for a fact that a month, if you're seriously thinking of having an abortion, you shouldn't need more than a month to be able to decide if you're going to have an abortion. And after 1 month of gestation in the womb, the infant is no longer just a clump of cells. And an excuse that a lot of women like to make along the lines of pro-abortion is that it's just a clump of cells. So you're telling me that for 9 months, that thing is just a clump of cells that's growing big into a bigger clump ball of cells and just happens to turn into a baby right before it's born? I think not. Those are the women and men who choose not to think about anything. They regurgitate what society tells them to. After a month, the child is forming eyes, forming nose, forming an overall body shape. It's no longer a clump of cells. And after that, how different is abortion past a month? How different is it than a woman who kills her newborn infant, after giving birth to it and kills it? What exactly is the difference? I'll tell you the difference. The difference is that that child has not been seen by anybody. It was in the womb, not outside of the womb. That's all it boils down to. If you haven't seen it, then it's not real, so to speak. And there are a lot of the pro-abortionists are pro-abortion because they really did not think about anything. They heard someone they admire talk about how they're pro-abortion, and all of a sudden they're pro-abortion. Because all of a sudden they have an opinion about it. And that's putting a bit of a damper on society as a whole. I do see how abortions would be necessary under emergency situations. Emergency such as, say, you got pregnant and you have one of those really shitty families who would kick you out or, God knows, abuse you regardless of if you were pregnant. Circumstances where the woman's health to begin with before she got pregnant was already bad. It's cold in here. It's already in bad condition, whether it be due to drugs or due to genetics, and genetics topped with abuse. There are some people who shouldn't be parents. And if they are considering abortion, then they certainly should have access to well-funded, proper equipment to get the abortion. They should only be allowed up to a month maximum to choose if they're going to have an abortion. Because past that, it's no longer just a clump of cells that you're removing. No longer a tumor, so to speak. It's a baby. It's not a fully formed baby, but it's still a baby. It's an individual. It's developing its own brain. It's developing its own neurological system. It's developing its own digestive system. It is an individual at that point. And that kind of constitutes as murder. I know. Oh, rape is murder, you're a lunatic, you're a conspiracist, yada, yada, yada. Okay, fine. If you want to think I'm a conspiracist and a lunatic, fine. But there's validity to what I am saying. How different is a full-term abortion compared to a mother murdering her newborn child? How different is it really? It's not different. The only difference is you do not see that child first. And a lot of women who happen to be pro-abortion will read stories about women who kill their newborn infants and be like, oh, how could she do that? That's disgusting. But they'll turn around and say, oh yeah, if you want to have an abortion at 8 months, that's totally fine. That's disgusting. And that's something that they never gave thought about. That's something they were told via social media, via someone, you know, like I said, someone who they admire, and all of a sudden they have an opinion about it. That's not their true opinion because they never had to think about it. And they don't want to think about it. There's a lot wrong with it. And I changed my stance on abortion. You know, I've had more than enough experience with young children to know more than enough of how smart and receptive they are to information, even at newborn. There are a lot of newborns who, you know, as soon as they're born, they're opening their eyes, they're looking at people, they're studying everything. You mean to tell me that right before that child was born, that it was just a clump of cells that you wanted to get rid of? I think not. And I think a lot of people who are pro-abortion happen to be people who don't have a lot of experience with children. That's what I think. Not saying all of them, but I think a good portion of them don't have any, if a lot, experience with children. So, just, you know, the question, how different is it to abort a child at 9 months, 8 months, 7 months, even 6 months? How different is it to abort a child after a month versus killing a child who has been born, who has been seen by more than 2 people? It's not different. Something liberals love is, you know, something that many of them have said, I don't like hearing that. I don't like seeing that. I don't like knowing about that. Yeah, well, unfortunately, honey, it exists. And to turn your face away from something like that purely because it's unpleasant, yeah, it's unpleasant, but it needs attention because it's unpleasant. Like, it's one of those things that you're just as bad by turning away from it than you know, just as bad as the person or thing that's happening if you decide to turn away from it. It's like I'm going to go into feminism briefly. It's like women who claim to be about women's rights, and the very instant they are made aware of child marriages in India, in the Middle East, and Pakistan, and Burma, they go silent. They have nothing to say. They don't say anything because they don't want to admit to themselves and admit to everyone else that they don't care. I would have more respect for a feminist who went out and said that she did not care about women from other countries. I would respect a feminist more if she said that she did not care if other young girls in other countries were being married off to 40-year-old men and being forced to have their children. At least they're being honest. But the thing with feminists and liberals are virtually the same fucking thing at this point. Feminists and liberals turn away from situations like that. And how can you claim to be about women's rights and not say anything about, for example, the rapes that happened in Cologne, Germany? Are you telling me that those women who got gang raped were asking for it? Are you going to go around and say that they were asking for it and then walk down Main Street for your slut walk? You don't care about women. You don't care about women's rights. You don't care about anything but yourself. And a lot of liberals don't actually want to think about the consequences of anything because, oh, that's unpleasant. Oh, that interferes with my fantasy. Grow the fuck up. Grow the fuck up and actually give thought to what you say you're passionate and opinionated about. You know, at the time when I made the video, I had given thought to abortion, and even then I said, if you are not under the circumstances of, you know, rape, drug abuse, or mental illness, I don't think you qualify for abortion. No, I don't. I think you should be lumped in with your bad mistake. If you get drunk and have sex, get knocked up, I think you should be made to carry the child full term. What you do afterward, assuming you don't kill it, if you give it up for adoption, a lot of people would be okay with that. And I think those who gave their children up for adoption would be more okay with it than they would be with abortion. My mother had an abortion when she was young due to a rape, and she regrets it to this day. She knew it was the right thing to do, but she regrets it. I cannot fathom a world where majority of women don't feel anything when it comes to abortion. How does something like taking the life of a little child not affect you? There's something wrong with you. Absolutely something wrong with you. Anyway, so that's where I stand. I think abortion should still be legal, or I still think abortion should be legal. I think it should be incredibly tightly regulated. The way that liberals want regulations on guns, that's the kind of tight regulations we need on abortions. It needs to be a legitimate emergency and health